think that's the thing. Like when you don't have knowledge about things, you don't even know what to project.
Yeah, unknown unknowns.
Yeah, like how would you even know what to project that far in advance when you're like so far away from it? The 5-year plan, back in corporate, I love planning. So I was just like, oh yeah, another thing to plan. Yeah. But it never really like fit. Like it never really made a whole lot of sense to me. So there's one of two things. There's something you want to do and you're finding a 5-year reason to procrastinate on it.
Okay. Right.
Like,
because you have a clear idea of how to get the thing,
right?
But you're just procrastinating.
You're procrastinating for 5 years for no reason.
Yeah.
Or you don't want it. Like it's something that you think you want, but deep down you know you don't actually want it, and you're trying to avoid what you actually want by creating this elaborate 5-year plan for something that you don't want because it's easier, it's predictable. Because usually what we do want is very hard to define. And it's very hard to go after because we don't know. We've never done it before. And why I say that is because everybody's desires are unique. So whatever you want and whatever you see for your life is completely unique. Even if it's like, oh, I want to be a musician, there's musicians out there. But your version or your style or how it's ideal to you is going to be very unique. So given that your dreams and your desires are like unique to you, you've never seen it before. So that's why it's really hard to go after what you want, which is why we created a podcast like this, because it was like, we need examples of people doing it. So people are like, okay, how can I take action in my own version of it, right? So usually 5-year plans are a really good way for you to be like, I have a feeling it's in this direction, but I have no idea what that looks like. So let me just create this 5-year plan of like some templated plan of what people do when they want X, even though I don't want X, it's close enough. And I think that's what a lot of people do. They pick one of the two options and it's like, both are a bad idea.
Yeah, I feel like 5-year plans just don't make a whole lot of sense for individuals. Like it makes sense for a large company. Yeah. Because they're big. And 5 years because the pace of progress and change for a large company is a lot slower than for an individual. Yeah. Like if, a company that's been in existence for 50 years wants to make a change, it's going to take years to really make that change, for that message to really trickle through the entire organization. Right. But for an individual to change, it just takes a moment. You know what I mean? So the time scale 5 years is so huge for an individual. Seriously. But is not that huge for a company. So like this 5-year plan exercise, like while it might make sense for a large enterprise, it's suboptimal. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for individuals. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think that makes sense.
I think that's why it never really made sense for you, because it doesn't make sense for individuals.
Because a lot of times you're also doing 5-year plans in the setting of a large corporation,
which is not the real world.
Right, which is not the real world. And it kind of makes sense there because you can't, as an individual contributor in a corporation, you can't make all the change by yourself. You have to work with the departments and your team to make it happen. So it just naturally slows down the pace of how you can make that change. So it does kind of make sense in that way. Like, okay, I'm going to watch this training video because I looked it up because it's been a while. And literally I was looking up like 5-year plans, like how it looks like, what people do in a 5-year plan typically. And it was just like, I'm going to take this course. And then after I watch this training video, I'm going to like meet with this person. Right. It's very like step by step by step.
It kind of goes back to what I said at the top. It's the illusion that the world is predictable. Yeah. You know what I mean? Typically predictability, we were talking about this earlier, typically predictability only comes from experience, from been there, done that. Like if you were to kind of lose everything, you'd be able to get another corporate job. Right. You'd be able to get freelance clients. Yeah. I would be able to get another job. Yeah. I would be able to start a YouTube channel. I'd be able to start a community. Like these things that we've been there, done that. Like,
we can do it again.
It's predictable because of our experience.
Right.
But anything worth pursuing, anything worth putting at the end of your 5-year plan is not something you've done before. Yeah. That's why you're aspiring to spend 5 years of your life pursuing that goal. Right. And anything like that, you lack that experience. So you have no idea
what that step would look like.
There is no predictability. Right. You don't know how to do that. Yeah. Which is why like 5-year plans kind of on paper they make sense if you know exactly how to do it.
Right.
But like nothing that you know exactly what steps to take is worth pursuing for 5 years. Yeah.
Right. It's like, why would okay. So 5-year plans are things that you don't know how to achieve probably because it's going to be taking that long. Like for me, I don't know how to make $1 million. Right. Okay. That would probably be eligible for a 5-year plan. Right. But I've never made $1 million. So how would I even know what comes in this year versus that year and which, like I could do research, I could study, but your experience is never going to be exactly what someone else's. Right. So I wouldn't have the most informed decision making on what I do during that 5-year plan. Versus if somebody told me to start a YouTube channel, I could give someone a 5-year plan, but I'd be like, that's ridiculous. You can do that in like a week or a day. Right. And so I would have so much more information to fill even in that week plan. Right. And I think 5-year plans can work in the setting of corporate for the individual because like
the world is more predictable.
It's fixed. It's in the corporation, and like corporations are little worlds. Like if you've worked there, you know, like, oh, there's like this famous person and that famous person in the company, but that's not real. Like I always said this, like when I quit, like my VP or like the CFO of my company who's so famous in my company, if they go to Korean barbecue, I wouldn't know who they are. Like I would just be like, that's a normal person. But in his own world, he's this famous person, right? And it's like it makes sense in those environments because it is fixed. It's more predictable. Like everybody acts a certain way, everybody does certain things, and this person's probably going to be doing this job next year, which means you can probably talk to them at this time. And like it makes more sense. But in the real world, when you're pursuing a dream life you've never done before, this $1 million goal, right? Like I don't have a choice but to narrow that down because it won't make sense. It's not real. Another thing with that is that I know why people do it. It gives you this very comforting feeling. Sure. You know, plans just make you feel better. It makes you feel like I can control things.
Sense of predictability.
Exactly. And I did the same thing when I entered corporate, like my last semester, or not corporate, sorry. When I entered this like entrepreneurship world, I had a plan. I didn't do 5-year plan because I knew that wasn't going to help, but I kind of did this like, we kind of talk about this because when we were both starting to think about my consulting business, which is called IOA Studios, I was very much a planner. I like even have a TikTok video of me talking about like how I'm going to make this money and like work backwards. We should
link that in the description.
We should. It's embarrassing looking back now, but it's like I had an idea of what packages I was going to have that was going to make me this amount of money because I had like just decided how much money I wanted to make by the end of the month. Like each month, which is cute. It's a cute exercise, but I don't know how to make that money. So it doesn't matter what I say is my plan for making the money. I've never done that before. And so I had this cute exercise of how I'm going to do it. And it made sense. People still like that video and comment. They're like, oh my God, this is helpful. I'm like, no, it's not.
It makes sense, but it doesn't work.
It doesn't work, right? And that's the point. Like things can make sense on paper, but they don't work. Like that's a relationship.
A 5-year plan in a nutshell.
Yeah.
It makes sense, but it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. It's just like trying to say like, I want my dream guy on paper and you can have that dream guy and you guys are not compatible. It's the same concept. And I think I wrote down this plan and we always laugh about how like I came in with such strong, like this, it was much more of a planning and executing when I didn't have much time to play and explore and like figure out what I was trying to do. I came in with a very strong, like, this is what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it. Let's get started. And it didn't work. It didn't work because first of all, I was completely misaligned from the prompt or the objective. I wanted to be this consultant and make money because I could make a lot of money and it's something I knew how to do, but it's not something I like to do. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what kind of elaborate plan I have. It wasn't for me in the first place, which is another thing I want to talk about. Like when you're starting this plan, it has to be something that you enjoy. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what kind of amazing 10, 5, 70-year plan you create for yourself. If you don't like the goal, it doesn't matter. What's the point? You know? But I do want to bring up like accepting that lack of control is it's a lot easier and it's so much more effective. That's really counterintuitive. But people like the 5-year plan because it makes sense. It's comforting. It helps them eliminate uncertainty in their life. They're like, oh, I can leave it up to the plan. I don't have to do anything. I have comfort in this. It's the same thing with corporate, to be honest. Like they're taking care of my health insurance. They're taking care of everything. I don't have to worry about it. Right. But it's not real. So let's just you have to come to terms with like, you are choosing to buy into a delusion, right? So with the notion that nothing is for certain, that there's always uncertainty, you're just either choosing to look at it or not. What you're giving up with that certainty is like the action. Like you're giving that up because you're trying to say like, this is in my certain plan. So there's really nothing I can do else other than that. Like,
it's like a trade-off between certainty and accuracy.
You
know, because the world is uncertain. It is unpredictable. You know what I mean? And the further out, the further away you go in time, in space, whatever, the less certain you are of what that actually looks like. You know what I mean? I have a clearer picture of what tomorrow might look like versus next week. And next week is clearer than next month. And next month is clearer than next year. You know what I mean? And a 5-year plan, it does give you this feeling of certainty, but the plan is inaccurate. You know what I mean? And so you kind of choose your trade-off, like how much accuracy do I want versus how much certainty, because we do need certainty. We need to have that feeling that, you know, we have some sort of influence and control and things are going to work out, and
or
things
you're
are
not,
going to be okay, or you're not going to have the motivation to go after it.
You're going to feel so sad.
So certainty is important, but if you kind of you give up all the accuracy to be confident, to be completely delusional, you know what I mean? It may not serve you in the real world. Like when you start operating with faulty assumptions, with false preconceived notions, you're going to be less effective. So it's about finding that right balance.
And I think that's what happened with me in my consulting business. I was so worried about sticking to this plan that I wasn't listening to the signs around me, because I'm like, oh, this is not my 5-year plan, but this is my plan. And this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I have to do to get to this goal. But it didn't matter because it still wasn't accurate. So that's why I was like, why am I not getting there? I don't know, because it doesn't fit. It's not real. And I think when you let go of this like desperate need or like overcompensation for certainty, I think you're able to like actually learn, which is what you need to achieve the goal. You actually need to like have knowledge, and you also need to take action. So like the knowledge and the action usually leads to the success, because when you're doing, you don't just want to do out of like no direction, right? But that's why you combine it with the learnings. But you have to be open to learn. Like you can't be in this like this completely fixed world.
When you're certain about everything, there's no room for learning.
Exactly.
There's nothing to learn
because it's like, oh, I just do this tomorrow. But that's why goals and plans and all this is not a bad thing. It just means that it needs to be informed by something that's real, or you're never going to get to the goal.
And it's kind of like the Jeff Bezos quote that we might talk about later. But it's like, you're stubborn on your vision, like the ultimate objective, you know, whatever that looks like, but you're flexible on the details. You're flexible on how you're actually going to get there.
Right. And I think, exactly. And I think people have it flipped. They're like
stubborn on the details, but flexible on the outcome.
And that's not what you want to be, because your vision is the goal. So when I talk about goal, like the dream life, the vision, that's the goal. The goal is not take 3 courses on, you know, engineering. Like that's not the goal. That's just like how you'll do it, right? And I think people get very fixed on how to do the thing when you don't know how yet, because you still lack the knowledge. So when you're holding on to certainty, you're preventing yourself from taking action. You're preventing yourself from taking informed action at that. And then that leads to you not getting to that goal or your real goal. And it's just like, because you can't ignore the fact that if you aren't aligned with something, you can't truly be successful at it. And success is subjective. And that's why I say that, like, whatever success means to you is what it means to you. I can't define it. Only you can. But you know when something feels successful to you or not. Like you can get the car, you can get the career, the title, the degree, and still feel nothing. And that means that that's not your version of success.